Today, we're continuing on with the 6 best values to have for 2026, bringing you number 3. This is a big one. We've done joy, we've done integrity, we've done kindness, and now something that many of you probably already know is important, yet I'm going to teach you more ways that it's even more important than you thought and why you should make this your 3rd best value to have in 2026, and that is we're talking about communication. And we're talking about it from Athens, Greece. So let's get started. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the show. Coming to you, you can see the Acropolis in the background here behind me, the Pantheon. The Parthenon, I think it's the pantheon of Greek gods. Parthenon is something else. I'm still relearning a lot of my Greek history. Yet I am here in Greece, which is a country different than where I usually live, California, which is the state in the United States, which the common language there is English. Here in Greece, the common language is modern Greek, which I've already learned is different than ancient Greek, and even from the Greek that was taught a little bit more than 40 years ago. And so this might be the type of communication that many of you think of when I say communication it's just the language that we speak. And now I'm in Greece, I was in Chile, I was in Colombia, Spanish-speaking countries. And again, even in those countries, Spanish might not just be the only language. There might be other indigenous languages that are also spoken amongst people. And so it's been very on my mind of the challenges in communication when it's like I don't speak the language, or maybe I speak some of it, but I don't speak it as well. Or it's like I speak it well enough, but it's learning that, oh, it's a different flavor here. Like there's a different cadence, there's different words usage. It's like, oh, all of a sudden what I thought I knew, I don't know. And so when it comes to just, speaking with other people, yes, communication is important. Yet I really want this to be as much about internal communication, as much as, if not more than or less than. I really want to get across that your internal communication is actually way more important than your external communication, because whether you are attending it or not, you're always communicating. Because one of the things I've definitely found to be true is even if I don't speak the language at all and somebody else doesn't speak my language, that there's a whole lot of communication still happening. And so things can still get done. There can still be a connection. There can still be transactions, even if there's not the shared language through speech, through writing, through that, because that the words that we use is just a small fraction of communication between other people. Because there's something where it's like, there's the words, and you often will realize that's partially why when we're just doing text-based communication, why it usually goes to shit so fast, because the words that I use, I might be thinking that it comes across one way, but to somebody else, they come across another way. And since all there is the words, it's a lot easier to confuse what's going on. But when we're face to face, you and I, like, at least now if you're listening, you get the intonation, the tone of my voice. Because, if I say like, I am so incredibly happy with you, this is so amazing, thank you, you're probably fucking confused. You think like Justin is crazy because something was off. Like, yes, the words he said were pleasant, but the way he said it was harsh. And for those of you watching on YouTube, like you get to see the beautiful background, which is great, and kind of like experiences. But two, I could say something like, I'm so very happy with you. This is so great. This is such an amazing time. And if you saw the way that I did that, you'd probably be like, again, Justin's crazy, because this is one of these things where sometimes it's ends up being challenging for one part of us to do one thing while another does another. Because I was attempting to frown while saying something nice with a nice tone of voice. I don't know if I quite got it across, But the point is that, we're communicating at least in three ways that's easy for any of us to go with. And that is, there's the actual words themselves, there's the tone, and then there is the body language, the facial expressions, the eyes. And then I'm going to add a fourth, and that is the energetics behind that. There's that total subtle that could basically, because there's often times where like you go to somebody and it's like they said the right thing, they said it in the right way, and it's like everything matched up, but it's just there's something you're like, I don't like this. There's just something I don't like about this person. That's what I'm talking about. There can be an energetic something behind it, and sometimes it's conscious, sometimes it's not. And what I want to get into of valuing communication, valuing it more than just the words, but even more than just what happens interpersonally. What happens, I guess it would be intrapersonally. What's going on within you? Because what's going on within you is going to come across on all those other four modalities. And again, if you don't have the words, and sometimes you don't have the tonality, and sometimes all you have is the physicality, but then sometimes you don't have that. It's just your energy that can have some immense capabilities in allowing you to have a pleasant experience or less than pleasant experience, right? Because it's really like, are you aware of what it is that you're putting out there? And is that in alignment with what it is you want to consciously intend? And sometimes many of us are putting out something that we're not even aware of. Because I've had, many people in my life over time where it's one of those like, is everything okay? Or you seem upset. What? No, I'm absolutely fine. I'm totally okay. It's like clear. Yeah, I've since learned when I come across somebody like that, I just do my best not to argue with anybody at this point. It's just I'm going to go where either my work is of value or I'm enjoying myself. So there's no need to argue. But it's like, oh, that's somebody whose internal communication is completely off. Like they're feeling anger, they're communicating it, yet they don't know it. So, how are you able to communicate with yourself? This is really the next level of communication that I want to put on your radar for you to start to value that beyond just like, oh, what are the 5 phrases that can get someone to say yes to your sales pitch? Like, I don't know, that's cute and all, but honestly, if you don't know these other things, like that stuff's not going to work anymore. That used to work, and it'll probably still work on some people, but probably the people you want to be in business with, in relation with, that shit is not going to work anymore. You want to be an aligned person, because really, this is all going to get like, you want to be in integrity. You don't want to just be saying things that get stuff to happen, and you're one way and saying another thing. No, you want to be in integrity, and you want to be kind, and you want to be feeling joy. And this is really about valuing, how do you make that happen within yourself? How are you aware of what's the mental chatter? What is your emotional state? And then maybe what is some of the starting to be like, oh, what are the energetics behind this? And as you start to have these questions, it's going to start to come to you the ways of doing that. And the last episode that I recorded was all about, how a lot of these practices that really are about communication, about internal communication, because that's really about, listening to yourself, understanding what you're feeling, and then starting to work with some of these more subtle energies, and why many of them, they work on one level, but they don't necessarily work anymore. There was somebody that recently, they got to witness a yoga practice that they do over and over again. And it was one of those where the sounds of breathing and these tones expressed, to me, I'm like, this sounds like frustration and like tension and anger. And to me, I'm just like, hey, sometimes that is what is within and needing to get expressed. Yet there's another thing of like, if we tell ourselves to keep doing this, that this is important, that this is something that we want more of because we place our attention and we cultivate it, we're just going to get more of, right? So it's one of those like, is this a practice that is allowing the release of anger, frustration, tension when it's present, or is it now cultivating frustration, anger, tension, and ensuring that it's present, right? And it's like if we're not having that ability to have that internal communication of what am I telling myself and what am I hearing from myself, then when someone just flops a practice on us, we could be doing stuff that it's like, I don't want to do that. This is a horrible idea, right? Kind of like, if you end up like signing up for like the wrong internet plan, like you got sold into it, like especially if somebody came door to door and it's like, why do I have like 80 gigabytes, but which is great, but then I now have this home monitoring system with 800 cameras and I'm in a one bedroom unit. Like you're just like, why I don't, this isn't what I need. Because it's not that like anything's bad or wrong. It's just like, is this for you? Is this supporting you to live the life that you want to be living, right? And so once you start to kind of notice like, well, what's the interplay between what are the thoughts coming up, what are the emotions being cultivated, and then maybe like what else is going on, like what else is coming up that I'm able to perceive maybe in more subtle ways that goes beyond, even beyond words. And so like all these practices like meditation, yoga, other energy practices, they can all be great, yet it's really just trying to understand like, well, what was the purpose and what's the intention? Because a lot of times some of these practices are so divorced from where they came from that we don't actually know what we're working with, right? It's kind of like, it's a little bit, because here running a place for a few weeks here in Athens, and so there's naturally some things left behind, some spices, some oils, some things like that. It's all in Greek, and nowadays I can use the phone to translate and tell me what is this. And but for the sake of this analogy, like there could be all sorts of stuff in there, and it's like if I just take it and just start mixing it in, making food, I really don't know what I'm cooking with. And many of you don't know what you're cooking with when it comes to what you're doing day in, day out, because you haven't valued the communication you have going on inside of you of what is it you feel, where are those feelings coming from, what are the thoughts that are the result of that, then what are the connections with maybe the what you put in your body, the foods, the the drinks, the media. All of these are forms of communication that you are then going to have responses externally and internally. All of your systems are communicating with it. Like there's a lot going on, which is why it's such an important value to value communication, especially within yourself. So I'm not saying don't also value communicating with other people, learning new words, learning new languages, learning, how your face and your tones and all that. Like, great, do that too, body language also. Yet the more you can master your internal communication, the more a lot of that is going to just sort of take care of itself. Because a lot of this you've been doing backwards, where it's like, let me figure out the right word sequence. Whereas when you have the right energetic base being of your you-ness, like all in aligned, and then the things just kind of go from that. A lot of this other stuff just boom, boom, boom falls into place, and the right people, the right situations, all the right stuff just kind of will happen more easily for you. And if you're like, okay, how do I start to work with that? That's where I've been talking about this now. Is a few episodes ago I talked about life energy and how that really is. It's sort of the basis of all communication, because really anything and everything kind of comes down to energy. Like it's almost just like basic science, because even if we just do digitally, like for me, for what's being sent to you to be able to watch, to listen, that takes energy. And so if you work with your energy, that's effectively working with your communication. And the life energy activation process that I've created, LEAP, basically allows you to increase your signal, increase the amplitude, have more energy, and have it aligned to the connections that are designed for you specifically. Because it's like, you are effectively this amazing, incredible device that can transmit and receive. And of course, there's, going to be, other folks out there that would like to utilize your bandwidth, your compute hardware. We kind of know this with our phones and our computers. It's like, oh yeah, people would like to, get a virus in there so then they can use your device to do something they want. Could be good, could be bad, doesn't matter. It's just not what you chose. You want to be able to choose. You want to choose what you're connected into, what you're getting, and you want it to be your choice and for your best. And so that's what the life energy activation process is all about, is getting that going for you to continuously get you realigned, reset. And it only takes 4 minutes to do this practice. And so definitely go to justinwenck.com/leap, or send me a message and let's get in touch and get you going on this. But there's lots of ways to start doing this. And so, like, the last episode was about how a lot of stuff doesn't really work that well anymore. Doesn't mean it doesn't work, or it won't work for you for a little bit right now. So I'd say anything that you're just like, oh, maybe I could try this meditation, or I could try this yoga, or I could try this, qigong, whatever. Do it. Try it out. Like, I know mine is really incredible that I've developed, because basically I wouldn't be sharing it with you if I didn't think it was something incredible, amazing, beneficial that will just change your life in the easiest, most possible way. Because again, we don't have time for nonsense anymore. I know I don't think you're the type of person that does. So yeah, with that, I'd be very curious. What are your thoughts on valuing communication? And are there more ways you could find yourself valuing the communication, especially within yourself and not just with other people? So, send me a message, ask me about LEAP. Really love to hear from you. And, I got a little bit more time here in Athens, Greece. So if there's, something related to that you want to know or find out about, so definitely, be looking for posts with pictures and videos and stuff like that on my socials, Justin Wenck, Ph.D. And, from in front of the Acropolis, it's me, Justin Wenck, Ph.D., saying good day. Thanks for tuning in to Engineering Emotions and Energy with Justin Wenck, Ph.D. Today's episode resonated with you? Please subscribe and leave a 5-star review. Your feedback not only supports the show, but also helps others find us and start their journey of emotional and energetic mastery. You can also help by sharing this podcast with someone you think will love it just as much as you do. Together, we're engineering more amazing lives.